Thank you for joining us on Perspectives with Asma Silva. And Asma, one of the things that we are able to do with this program is that although we are based right here in Worcester, Massachusetts, I think that people know that with your contacts, it's really a global show talking about issues that are going on all over the world. And certainly something that is much in the news right now, although this is not where we're going to begin our conversation today, is the violence that has happened in along the border. The fact that America has opened up their embassy in Jerusalem, has said that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. That's where we're going to end up our conversation. Talk to us a little bit about our guest and give us a little bit of an overview for those who may not have joined you on your radio show in the past.
Right. So our guest has returned back. I invited him again. He is Aarab Barghouti, who is the son of Marwan Barghouti. Originally on the radio show, and you can follow the link, we will have links to the original show where we went over what happened with his dad. And if people remember exactly his name, if it sounds familiar, he actually had done a fast or a not eating in protest of getting more medical care and help for some of the Palestinian prisoners in Israeli prisons. And we wanted to get an update on what his situation was, and also get the Palestinian perspective of what is going on in Palestine and Israel with their view of moving the capital to Jerusalem, as the United States has determined that that's what it's going to do and has done. So thank you so much, Arab, for coming again on this show. At this time, it's a TV show, but thank you for coming the first time and talking on such a heartfelt, and I remember back then you were very, very distraught on your father's condition and situation, and he was very well known around the world for his stance on what he was doing. So could you give us a little bit of an update on how your father is doing, and give us a background for those viewers and listeners who may not have joined us the first time?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. So what happened last time we talked is the hunger strike. The hunger strike started when my father, along with 1,500 Palestinian political prisoners, decided to take on this hunger strike, protesting their injustice conditions in Israeli jails. Because there has been a lot of violations of human rights in the Israeli jails, a lot of sick prisoners that were not treated humanely. Also, if you want to talk about the simple conditions like air conditioning, family visitations, that has been also violated by the Israeli prison authority. When we last time spoke, that time I haven't seen my dad for 3 years. But fortunately, after the hunger strike, the heroic hunger strike that every Palestinian is proud of, I've been able to visit my father 5 times in the last 5 months. I'm visiting him in 2 weeks. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to shake his hands yet in 15 years he's been imprisoned in. As I said, he's a Palestinian popular leader. He's a political leader that has nothing to do with any military actions that the Israeli government is trying to frame him with.
So in terms of his hunger strike, it was for getting medical aid and visitation from family members. Has that been alleviated? Is there a better condition?
Yeah, of course. We've been reaching really better conditions for many prisoners, even though the administrative detention is a disappointment because they promised to stop the administrative detention. And by the way, just yesterday, one of my cousins who's been imprisoned in an administrative detention, he stopped his hunger strike for 52 days because in any law there's no legitimacy for the administrative detention, which is detaining someone without even visiting the trial court, without even giving him the reason why he's detained. So he did that, and there are hundreds of Palestinians who are experiencing that, but on the other hand, conditions have been really better, and that's because of the heroic hunger strike that the Israeli government and prison authority have tried to fight this hunger strike and say that this has been done by Marwan Barghouti just for his political agenda and political future, which is of course full of lies, and what happened after proved them wrong and proved to the world that the Palestinians, even in their in prisons, they will keep resisting the illegal Israeli occupation and the illegal violations of human rights that happen in Palestine.
Well, I tell you, listening to this, I can't help but think about years ago the troubles in Ireland and some of the Irish political prisoners who had hunger strikes as well. Do you, in those cases, the British would sometimes come in and try to force feed them. Does your father, as he is getting stronger, feel that he has won a victory, any kind of concessions, that anything is changing, or just that his own, or that it's kind of a wash as far as where everybody has ended up?
No, you gotta look at it from two perspectives. The first one, two aspects. The first one is that they saw the difference after the hunger strike because their life conditions have been better. Every one of them has seen his family, at least some of them have taken pictures with their families. We're talking about very basic human rights, and anyone who can listen to me now would ask himself, is that a victory? But yeah, for Palestinians, it's a victory because the Israeli prison authority has been violating the human rights for years. In the last 50 years, if you look at it, 800,000 Palestinians have been imprisoned in Israeli jails. That's 25% of the Palestinian population. So every Palestinian basically knows someone or related to someone who has experienced this. This is a huge thing that took a better step for Palestinians. There are 6,000 Palestinian political prisoners in Israeli jails as we speak. On the other hand, it's a political victory to show that in the most peaceful way possible, with their empty stomachs, they proved their point. They proved that they can resist. They proved that they won't stop resisting these violations that we're talking about. And for his case, everyone knows that he's recognized nationally and internationally. And my father has been nominated for Nobel Peace Prize and many other achievements that I can talk about, that campaign to free Marwan Barghouti and all Palestinian political prisoners has achieved in the last few years since he was detained 15 years ago. And that's for the Israelis. The Israeli government is a loss for them, and whenever they hear his name in a huge festival like the festival that I just attended to like a few months ago in Paris, the Fête de l'Humanité, you can see his pictures everywhere. You can see the Communist Party in France. Everyone is talking about him. They're putting his pictures there. Educating people about this issue, and this is exactly what the Israeli government doesn't want. It's for people to know the truth about what's going on in Palestine and to educate people internationally in Europe and especially in the US about what's going on, because everyone who knows exactly what's happening in Palestine, and I'm talking, of course, about the truth, not what the mainstream media talks about.
So, in America, is that a tougher nut to crack then? Very, in America, obviously, very pro-Israel, seen as being almost anti-American in some ways if you are not pro-Israel. President Trump, far different view of the Middle East and how to solve problems there than President Barack Obama. When you're talking about what you're seeing in Paris, Does your father, do you feel that some inroads are being made in America? Is his story getting out to some outlets here, and if so, how?
I was very fortunate personally to live in the U.S. for almost 2 years in California. I saw it in my own eyes. I saw how the mainstream media manipulates everything when it comes to Palestine and Israel. I always said that for me, I gotta represent my country, and I have to say the truth. I have to talk about what's going on in Palestine, and it's really easy for me to convince someone to be with the Palestinian side, not against the Israeli side. We're not talking about or calling for anything to happen to the Israelis. We appreciate their existence, and we recognized their existence years ago. But when they manipulate the Americans that every Palestinian is Hamas, and they even lie about what Hamas does. Like in the last few weeks, the protests that happened, they said that Hamas sent innocent people to be killed, and this is a huge joke. As always, they've been saying that about every protest and peaceful protest that Palestinians have done. So to go back to your point, yeah, the Americans in the U.S., there has been a progress. If you look at it 15 years ago, it's not the same. Now, a lot of people are coming out, are talking about it. I've been to many universities, Stanford, San Francisco State universities. I talked to the students, even though I was personally attacked by many Israeli websites, and I was prevented from talking to many other students just because I'm the son of Marwan Barghouti. But it's still, I can see the end of the tunnel, that the Americans will wake up and will see the truth at some point.
Well, just because you brought it up, and I don't know if you want to get into this now, Asma, but
yeah,
because
let's
he
get into
brought
it.
it up, right? The Gaza Strip, is the violence that we saw there tied directly to the opening of the embassy in Jerusalem, or was there more to it, and that may have been a spark?
That day was the same day that is the anniversary of the Nakba. The Nakba is the catastrophe which led to the creation of the State of Israel back in 1948. That day, many Palestinians, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Palestinians, have been exiled from their homes. Now 6 million Palestinians live outside of Palestine, asking for their right of return. They're living in the worst conditions in refugee camps around the world. Even the U.S., many people were fortunate to live in the U.S., and I have many friends in there that wish they can come back and live in Palestine. And that day, of course, the American administration decided that that date is the date where they will move the American embassy to Jerusalem, which is disrespectful for the Palestinians. And they did not consider any feelings towards the Palestinians. On the other hand, they celebrated this as the creation of a great state in their quote unquote, which is Israel. It was unfortunate. So at that day, many people, like we're talking about, more than a million Palestinians protested around the West Bank and Gaza, and especially in Gaza Strip. What happened is a massacre, and every Palestinian feels so bad about this, but it didn't happen just that week. It has been happening for 6 weeks for Palestinians in Gaza who live in the biggest open-air prison, calling for the return to their homes inside the 48 borders, which is inside Israel. But of course, instead they started shooting them at a peaceful protest, which tells us one thing for us Palestinians. If we stay quiet, the land is going to disappear from us. We signed on 22% of the land in the old agreement back in 1993. Now we own only 14% of the land. If we stay quiet, it's about time that this 14% will be 0%, because there are many voices in Israel that are calling for kicking Palestinians out to Jordan and Egypt because they think that we don't have the right to be here. And if we peacefully protest, we're terrorists and Hamas is sending us to checkpoints. So there is no way out from the mainstream media. So, of course, we decided just to protest and resist in the most peaceful way, which is protesting without any shooting, without anything. And yet, tens of Palestinians get killed at that protest.
So my curiosity is, right now it's Ramadan time, and I know you're Skyping in from Palestine. Last time we spoke, you had interviewed, you were in California, and I remember we had tried getting you, and you said you were in Paris, which you had just mentioned with that conference honoring your father. But now you're back in Palestine. Can you describe to us what is the situation there? Now that you've been to the West, in such as Paris and US, compare that to what is in Palestine, so that we can understand what the difference is in that living situation.
Yeah. It's really hard to describe because, as I always say, I didn't come to Palestine. Like, occupation is not a highlight in my life. I've been here my whole life, so I know what occupation is. I know what injustice is. And for me to describe it for you, let's say we're not allowed, first of all, we're not allowed to have our own airport. So when I want to travel, let's say to the US or Europe, I go through Jordan, and I have to go through the Palestinian checkpoint, then the Israeli checkpoint, then the Jordanian checkpoint, then I go to the airport. Why? Because we're not allowed just to have an airport. And living here is just so tough because the taxes we pay goes to Israel. Anything we want to do is limited. So, for instance, if I want to grow a farm, I have limitations of how many cows I can have in there, how many chickens, how many to that far. So economically, we are limited. Of course, the right to movement is horrible here. I live in Ramallah, which is like maybe the safest city out from the Palestinian cities. And the West Bank in general is so much different than the Gaza Strip. Gaza is it's a disaster, and we've been reading reports for years about what's going on, and that more than 60% of the people are living in poverty, and 70% of the people are unemployed. 98% of the water is undrinkable. So I can't relate to what's going on in Gaza Strip because I'm not living there, and I can't go live in there because we have Israel between us geographically. If I want to talk about what it means to live in an occupation, I really need days to speak about it because I've been, as I said, living here for years. For example, my oldest brother, Qassam, when he went to study 15 years ago in Egypt to study his bachelor's, when he came back on Christmas to surprise my mom, they took him on the borders and they kept him detained for 3.5 years without any trial, without anything, just to put pressure on my dad because he was being interrogated at that time. So many events and many things that happened, unfortunately, with us, but it makes us stronger. Qassam is now a businessman. He has a family. He's working for Palestine. I'm doing the same. Everyone's doing his part. And I don't think, I always say what my dad once said, we will not, we're not organizations or militias. We're people. And you can't erase a whole people and the whole nation. So we're a whole nation, and we can't. They just can't erase the whole Palestinian people by doing so. But what surprises us is the silence around the world about the Palestinian struggle. And when it comes to any Israeli that experiences 1% of what we're experiencing, it's a whole different story, and everyone's talking about it.
Prime Minister of Israel, a hardliner. We've got all of like 5 minutes. Let's solve this problem right now. How have you been thinking about this probably your whole life, your father, your family fighting over this? How does it change? Can you see it changing? Does the government, do you need a new government in Israel that would be more amenable to change?
Yeah, I truly believe that the change is coming. I mean, it might take years, if not maybe decades, but the change is coming, because there's no way that the world is going to stay silent at a whole people, millions of people being illegally occupied on daily basis, abused on daily basis on checkpoint.
But you yourself just said we are staying silent, even with what just happened, even with what you described as a massacre, that the world is staying silent, that Israel controls the narrative. So what changes? Why so optimistic?
Optimistic because 100 years ago slavery existed, and 50 years ago segregation existed in the U.S. 30 years ago slavery and apartheid existed in South Africa. I think we're the last people to be occupied in the world, and I think the world is becoming nothing but better. The news the social media is helping us. Of course, the mainstream media is trying their best to create this narrative that the Palestinians are led by terrorist groups like Hamas or any other group, which I, of course, disagree with, because Hamas is part of the Palestinian people, even if I disagree with them on many levels. And but at the same time, things are, in my opinion, getting better with the BDS movement and with many voices around the world. And I believe that the biggest change will come and should come. I don't know, honestly, if it will come, but should come from Israel. The Israeli people are electing war criminals after war criminals to be their prime ministers since the creation of this state. Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal, and he is responsible for the killing of thousands of Palestinians throughout his two periods, before and now. And the surprising part is that Benjamin Netanyahu is now considered as a moderate, not a right-wing Israeli. So if that's their moderate, I don't know what the right-wing is, because the expectations are that the next prime minister is going to be more, let's say, more right-wing, and that will be unfortunate for the Palestinians. And unfortunately, of course, we're not getting the help from the Arab world. So I know things are negative for the Palestinians, but I don't believe that people that have been resisting the illegal occupation for 70 years will stop now and will stop ever. Because this is not just a land that we're fighting for. This is Jerusalem, the Holy Land. It means a lot for us Palestinians. And when I say Palestinians, I mean Muslims, Christians, and even Jewish people that are natives in this land. And I think within the next few years, the Palestinian leadership will refresh itself, because I don't like to put all the blame on the international community, on the Arabs, on Israel. We have our problems, and we need elections within the Palestinian Authority to make the big change internally.
Boy, there's There's
lot
so
of
much to get
information.
to, especially in what you just said, but we only have a couple of minutes left. So, Asma, why don't I turn it over to you to wrap up and give your perspective.
Well, thank you so much, Arab, for joining us. I know there was a time zone difference, and you still joined us, even though you are staying up pretty late for us to be able to tape today. But thank you so much, and hopefully when we see you again on the show, you'll have even more better news, and you'll give us more information how the world has become better, as you have predicted, with your prediction on there's only way up from this point, right? But to end the show, to share with my perspective, I grew up finding out, or at least learning, that you should always know both sides of a story before you make your decision. And in America, I believe that most people only know one side. We never hear the other side of the story. The whole point of this show is called Perspectives, and the reason why I invited Aarab Barghouti on this show is to show the other side, hearing it from the person who lives in Palestine, who's been struggling for their cause, who's actually been internationally well known and invited in many different places to talk about that Palestinian perspective. So I invite you, regardless of what your decision is and what your perspective is, to know both sides of the story before you do make a decision. And as Arab predicted, the only way for the world is to go up, and it's the only way to getting better. So I think we, just as I agree with him, it's only going to be better, and hopefully next time he comes on, we'll hear more good news. Thank you so much.